whether we're aware of it or conscious of it or not, how our own childhood, whatever little world was created for us, has its carryover into. Sometimes it's not just I'm wounded and therefore I'm wounding. It could be I'm overcompensating, right? So I need to. My parent didn't give this kind of thing to me, so now I'm gonna go over the top, and we may not even be aware of it. And I think with trusted friends, I think this is part of why we're opening up this conversation as a church, is that I'll just go on record and say you're not meant to do parenting alone. Yeah. If you don't have at least one friend of like faith that you can talk about your parenting journey with, that you can talk about your marriage with, if you're married, because your marriage will overflow onto your kids, you need to have that. But I remember, having said that, I remember when my wife was pregnant with our first child, and I was just having a moment. I was like, wow, we're going to have a kid. And I was just thinking to myself, and I had this weighty moment realizing when this child is born, me and my wife are the ones that are going to literally create a little world for them. And the weight of that was hitting me. I'm like, man, what is that going to be like? And how do we need to be intentional? And then, of course, we had another kid, and then we had 3 kids, and it was like, we don't even have time to think about any of that. We're just surviving. We're just, and of course, it doesn't have to be that way. There's intentional things we can do. But I want to pivot for a moment and throw this thought out there and let you guys respond to it. When you look back, I think as you're living through the seasons of being a parent, there's wisdom you have gained almost by accident. You didn't go looking for it. It just hit you. And here's a question I want you to think about. You can pause and think about it if you need to, but I'd love to hear from each of you if you have a response. If you could go back and talk to your young parenting self and offer them some wisdom, what would it be? And we're okay with silence for a minute if you need to think about that. Anyone that wants to share can jump in.
Yeah, I'll just jump in.
Go for it.
Something came to mind immediately, right? It's changing diapers at night. Maybe that helps somebody.
Okay,
Well, my daughter woke up in the middle of the night always and it was like a set time, like 2:30. And I've never heard a noise as loud as that. And maybe it's just the hour of the night, but she's like a plane taking off, I mean, amazing. I always tell her that, right? My ears ringing. And, we had this thing, my wife and I were very neat, right? And so we didn't just change the diaper, but we whole cleanup and everything, right? And I'm looking back, like with the third child, we just changed the diaper and let them go back to sleep, right? Just kind of your desire to do it perfectly, sometimes puts an enormous strain on the child, or you're just over communicating and complicating things at an intellectual level that a 3-year-old may not be able to understand. Just keep it simple and age appropriate, right? And I think that's why we want to be so perfect as parents, have the perfect explanation for why something, while the child just wants a clear direction. Well, this is not happening now. Okay, sorry. Yeah, this is sometimes more helpful for a small child, to in a respectful way to be told we can't do it, instead of giving a long-winded explanation that just intellectually they can't get, right? And so that's what I would say. Just keep things simple.
Yeah. So keep things simple. Don't put a bunch of pressure on yourself for everything to be perfect.
Right.
I mean, what kid is going to remember whether or not you change their onesie at 2:30 a.m.?
No.
I mean,
it's not. See, all they want to do is go back to sleep.
That's right.
And so you're just making a big ordeal out of something that can be very simple, actually, right? Yeah.
I do not miss those days, though.
No, you don't.
I do not miss those days of interrupted sleep. I'm a young parent, but I'm past those days.
Yeah. For me, it would be pick my battles. I've learned to pick my battles. I remember one time, my daughter, she comes to church occasionally. She grew up in church. She's a Cottonwood kid. And when she got to college, she was in college. She was now experiencing life, the young adult life, going out with her friends. And so she would come down and visit us. I invited her to church, so she got dressed and she came. Well, she was wearing some little tiny shorts. And I looked at her and I'm like, you're going to wear that? And she just threw everything down. She's like, I'm not going. And so I thought about that. And I shared it with a mentor who is also a mom. And she is a little older than me. And she had kids that have already gone through that. And she told me, pick your battles. So next time around, I invited her. She came. I didn't say nothing. She was at church. And honestly, that's all that matters, right? It doesn't matter what they're wearing. So, I mean, it does. And there's a time where you're going to speak into that with the help of the Holy Spirit, of course, because if he's not leading and it's all of our emotions, all of our, what we want, it's not going to work. But when God is doing it, it works. But picking your battles, clearly I have a couple of memories actually, when my daughter's going out and she'll come into the bedroom now and she's like, Mom, can you pray for me before I go out? And I pray for her and I laugh a little bit. I'm like, my daughter is about to go out and I'm praying for her and she wants me to pray for her. And so I know that God is working in her. I know that he's speaking to her because she has a relationship with him. That shows me that she actually acknowledges God. And so if you have teenagers, if you have young adults, just pick your battles.
I like that. Choose your battles. And I as you were talking, I'm realizing part of choosing our battles is recognizing where our kids are at and where they are not at. In other words, sometimes okay, maybe she shouldn't be wearing those shorts, but she may not be on that. That's not where she's at. And we put these things on our kids. It's kind of like I can expect my toddlers to act like they're 12 years old. Well, they're not 12 years old. Toddlers throw fits. Right. Toddlers are irrational. Toddlers act like crazy people. And I can walk in and get angry. And the irony is now I'm throwing a fit. Instead of recognizing like, okay, wait a second, I've been on this earth 40 plus years. They've been on this earth for 5 years. Yes, they're acting their age. Now you act your age.
No, as parents, we have the tendency, especially Christian parents, like trying to make mini yous all the time. You need to, listen to this music, dress like this, act like this. You're embarrassing me, we got to get that pressure off these kids. They're just kids, and they need to figure it out for themselves too. So.